This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Eva Peron, and Comrade Bernie took it on the shorts a little bit on Tuesday. And so the question becomes, since all the energy is with the socialists, Democrat Socialists and the Democrat Socialist Party, you know, when they can't focus in on a specific special election like Ohio 12, will they be able to generate turnout for moderate, more establishment Democrats that are going to be keys for victory in terms of Democrat takeover of the House, if that is to come to pass? You know, people focused on the Trump voter. Will the Trump voter turn out for congressional candidates? And Pew Research suggesting nearly 1 in 5 Trump voters may be somewhat disillusioned, somewhat chilly with respect to Trump today. And so will that cost Republicans in suburban races and states that lean blue or are blue? And will that make the difference for Democrats? What about the socialists? Because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's not going away.
No, and she falsely explained that the American upper middle class, which is the fastest growing class in America, has disappeared. Oh, okay.
So I think that politically, this upper middle class is probably more moderate. Mm-hmm. But that upper middle class doesn't exist anymore in America. And thanks to the continued deregulation of Wall Street, thanks to the continued gutting of working and middle class people, we need stronger champions. But I don't think that they see exactly how rising income inequality has resulted in a very stark political reality, and it has changed our political landscape. But their heyday was in the 90s when kids had Furbies and parents, you had soccer moms with 2 vans and stuff
Furbies and 2 vans.
Yeah.
That's a dream.
That's not America anymore.
She's so...
Can she grow up?
Well, she's so ignorant, but here's the thing. I mean, it's just bizarre. A couple things. One is we don't have classes in this country. We have socioeconomic quintiles, and we have people that move up and down the socioeconomic ladder all the time. And the data bears that out over time. Number 2, Phil Gramm had a good piece, former United States Senator from Texas, good piece in the Wall Street Journal yesterday talking about income inequality in America. And it turns out that our Gini coefficient, measuring income inequality, is not dissimilar to other G7 nations when you account for all of the government programs that transfer income between Americans. So it's actually Ocasio-Cortez that is spinning myths and propagating envy, because that is, as Churchill said, those are the features of socialism. For more on this topic and the good news that you won't have to worry about your funeral costs under Ocasio-Cortez culture, we're pleased to be joined by Ramesh Ponnuru. He is the columnist for Bloomberg View. He's also senior editor for National Review, and he writes about these topics and many others. Ramesh, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
I'm glad to be on.
So Ocasio-Cortez and Medicare for All, which is being reluctantly adopted as perhaps the lead plank in the Democrat Socialist 2018 platform, even the likes of Bain Capital principal or director Deval Patrick has adopted it.
Yeah, well, it's part of the Democrats' kind of race to the left right now. And I do think it is, in addition to being bad policy, politically risky, because the central fact of healthcare politics for at least 20 years now has been that people don't like the idea of disruption in their health arrangements that's imposed by Washington, D.C. That's usually been a problem for big government proposals. Occasionally it's been a problem for conservative free market proposals. But, a single-payer plan, Medicare for all, literally means your health insurance is threatened. The health insurance that scores of millions of people get from their employers, for example, is under threat. And you really wonder whether people have thought through the politics of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, just pontificate on that a little bit more.
So, if you remember, when Obama was selling his health care plan in 2009 and 2010, one of the central claims he made was, if you like your health insurance, you can keep your health insurance. Now, this did not turn out to be strictly true, but he at least understood the political problem there, that people didn't want to be told, look, these arrangements that you've made, that you're comfortable with, are all going to be upended because we've got this great plan. Don't worry, it's all going to be wonderful. The problem with single-payer Medicare for all, apart from its cost, which is a huge problem in itself, is that it can't even start making that promise. It has to say from the beginning, look, we've got a better idea. And that is going to be a really, really hard sell with most people, and rightly so.
Why does this debate, though, present a particular problem for conservatives in your estimation?
So, in a way, it's too politically vulnerable, right? So the problem is that Republicans would like nothing better than to campaign against these socialized medicine ideas and not have to talk about their own proposals to make healthcare more free market and to move away from Obamacare. And the problem is that over time, if you have a sort of a one-sided debate where the left is pushing for its ideas and all that Republicans are doing is batting them down, you slowly lose, right? Because eventually the Democrats have a landslide victory the way they did in 2008, and they get to ratchet the whole system to the left towards socialized medicine. And all Republicans are doing is resisting that. They're not trying to actually make the system more like what conservatives would want. That, I think, is, that's pretty good setup for Republicans because they can do what they're most comfortable doing, which is resisting the left. And they can make some political gains by talking about the threat of socialism. But over the long run, it means that you lose ground.
With respect to the midterms, because this is all sort of setting up for a discussion of the midterms, I mentioned the Pew Research out about the Trump coalition that elected him in 2016 and kind of where they're categorized at this point, with nearly 1 in 5 expressing some reservations about Trump. And the question sort of becomes, in my mind, will Trump's personality do what Obama's policy choices did, which is turn majorities into minorities? And is that really going to be the basis on which the midterms turn?
Well, it is a risk. Midterm elections are referenda on the president, and they typically, although not always, but typically go against the president just because the opponents of the president are more revved up and the supporters are more complacent. So, even if this president were not sort of going out of his way at some occasions to provoke the other side, that would be the case. But probably Trump has made that a little bit worse for himself and for Republicans. And his numbers are lower than they would be for a normal president presiding over a strong economy. So that's the threat. One thing, though, I would say is just because you were a reluctant Trump supporter, it doesn't mean that you're not a supporter of congressional Republicans. Right? I mean, you could have a very, very Trump-specific problem or concern, but while basically being a conservative Republican. And the other thing is, look, Trump wouldn't have won the election in the first place without an awful lot of people who were swallowing their doubts or holding their noses to vote for him, given the alternative.
Well, and
the problem right now, though, is there is more enthusiasm on the left side.
Yeah.
There's enthusiasm, but it's also sort of one big dung show, too, I think, to a lot of people. I mean, just to today, a smattering of what I'm talking about. Wall Street Journal, Democrat Party's new litmus test, gun control. Bill Nelson spinning yarns about Russians have already compromising the Florida electoral system. Op-ed writers at the New York Times talking about the Constitution being designed to protect rich people like Donald Trump, and it needs to be changed. The Constitution is not going to be saved. Salon.com, we're at the press the hysteria button point with climate change, in addition to what you hear from Ocasio-Cortez. And all that cacophony of weirdness, I don't think serves the Democrats, regardless of how enthusiastic the socialists are.
Well, so that's one other question about the fall campaign that's shaping up is, do the Democrats, by overreaching, generate some of that enthusiasm from the Republicans? Because, look, what a lot of Republicans want to sell right now is we've got a strong economy, tax cuts, deregulation are working, we've got some good court appointments, and all that's great, but that's all reasons to be happy, reasons to be satisfied, and those aren't typically the way that you motivate people to actually come out and vote in a low turnout election, like a midterm election. Grievances, threats, fears, dangers, that's what gets people much more likely to actually go out there and sort of do battle. And the Democrats, I think, are the ones who are providing that kind of impetus for the Republicans right now.
He is Ramesh Ponnuru, columnist for Bloomberg View, senior editor for National Review. Ramesh, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.